I mix what I like, what I like.
I mix what I like is exactly where you want and need to be. I mix what I like organic, vegan, soul food from your immediate diet. Get healthy. Get healthy.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Yeah, what's up, world? Welcome back to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here on Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be your host. Welcome, everybody who's able to join us live. Come on in, like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon on your way in the door. Greetings to all the remixers coming in the building. Oh, Hiram's in the building early. What's up, Hiram? What's up, Chef Shadow 5, the John Moan? What's up, good people? So we got a big show for you. Don't want to stand on ceremony too much. Just want to quickly encourage folks to like, share, subscribe, do all those things. All that you can find in the show description to help us move along here in this demonetized wilderness. But in the interim, in the meantime, between time, did see some of the early news regarding the reported statements from David Hilliard in support of Donald Trump. The bat signal went up, so to speak, and we were tagged specifically inviting our next guest to join us, and we all know who that is, so we'll bring him to the stage now, and that is, of course, Dhoruba Bin-Wahad. Dhoruba, welcome. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us once more. Hope all is at least relatively well.
Well, you know, fighting fire with a feather, but yeah, I'm here, man. I heard about this.
With a feather soaked in grease,
soaked in gasoline.
Gasoline. Exactly. Yeah. But you heard about this, and I'm glad you could join us pretty quickly. Because a lot has been said in the interim, and so yeah, I do want to play these two competing clips. I know that we heard we'll see the initial, and then we'll hear from his grandson, and then get you to add some context and some history and some updated analysis, if that's all right. So we have here. This was the initial story as it sort of came out. From whoever Carol Mitchell is, and we'll just play this briefly here.
Welcome to the random site. I want you to meet someone who knew Donald Trump, and he's going to tell you about Donald Trump in his own words.
My name is David Hilliard, founding member of the Black Panther. I knew Trump when Trump was a college student in New York. We supported the Black Panther Party. That's how I know Trump.
What kind of person do you think Donald Trump is?
Trump is a person who's a decent man, and he supported the Black Panther Party. That's what I did. He was someone who gave us money, and Trump was a decent guy.
Mm-hmm.
Trump?
Yes.
Trump's a friend of African Americans, and I knew Trump from the 1960s. In New York, where he comes from, and he's a friend to African Americans.
Oh, and now when you say a friend to African American, what do you mean by friend?
I mean he's not a racist. He's not a racist, fascist white man. He's supportive.
Yeah, this is like elder abuse.
New York.
Oh wow. Okay. Now, do you remember the time that Trump supported Jesse Jackson?
No, but I remember when he supported the Black Panther Party.
Wow, that's incredible. And how did he support the Black Panther Party?
With his money.
Whoa, for real? My goodness.
He gave us money.
So, in your opinion, Trump has always been, now that he has these 34 counts of being a felon, Trump has always been part of the Black community, or familiarized at least with the Black community.
That's exactly right. Trump was a friend to people of African American descent, and he owned all of Harlem.
Wow, that's amazing. So in your opinion, sir, your valued opinion, why do you think they put all these charges on Trump, and they're afraid of him to be president?
Because Trump likes Africans in America. He likes Black folks. That's one. I think that Trump is qualified and a very decent approach to having somebody representing America. Trump,
yeah, I agree with you. And I think Trump would be able to get us off this government thing and get us to making our own money, you know, because he knows how to make money. He knows how to lose money. And so he would be the perfect person to help us get our own again, right?
By being president.
And Trump's a friend of African Americans. He's always been a friend of Black people. That's how I know Trump.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
All right. So we got that. And then not too long after, competing reports came out. And then, of course, this is from his grandson, which we should check also.
Hey, my name is Eric Jones, and this is my grandfather,
David Hilliard.
All right. And my grandfather, David, is clearing up some of the air that Miss Carol Mitchell may have kind of stirred while she's misrepresenting some of his views on Donald Trump and these 34 guilty verdict accounts. So anything that he spoke with her about Donald Trump was about in 1960, in which Donald Trump assisted the Black Panther Party. You can tell the story better than me.
Donald Trump was our realtor and such, and most of the properties that we lived in Harlem belonged to Donald Trump, and that's how our relationship came into existence.
And that is purely speaking in terms of the past. That is not a nod of support to any of today's political climate and with Donald Trump or with any other candidate.
That's correct. There's one person that's in New York. His name is Doug McHenry. He knows Trump. As a matter of fact, I think he introduced Trump to the Black Panther Party. His name is Doug McHenry.
Okay. And again, this is not a nod of support to any political affiliate on either side. This is purely historical based upon Donald Trump. What Miss Carol had done, she will be receiving a cease and desist letter from any type of communication here on further with my grandfather, and it's not okay. Thank you. Let's sign off.
Thank you and goodbye.
All right. So there's a number of lessons, obviously, we could draw from this, from reporting to the spread of misinformation. But when we first saw this, again, any excuse to have a conversation with you so I do think on the one hand, there's this broader attempt right now to get as many Black people as possible to vote for Trump and to not vote for Biden. And there's always a broader attempt in the Republican Party to get, I don't know, 5% of the Black vote or whatever. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of celebrities seem to be pointing to Trump. So this seemed to fall right in line and be like a perfect clickbait viral type of thing to happen. What would you like to say, having seen that? Where do you think we should, what do you think should be the response to that? And what can you tell us about Trump's relationship to the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party?
Well, first of all, let me say this. You know, I understand that David is suffering from dementia, and that you know, he's an elderly man like myself. It's unfortunate that he's going through that, and I understand how his family could feel. Why do everybody start making noise as soon as I start talking? What the? Don't have me start cussing, motherfucker. Listen.
If we can still hear you, all right. Don't worry about
it. Let me just cut to the chase. First of all, David Hilliard had no interactions in Harlem at all. The only time David came to Harlem as the chief of staff of the Black Panther Party, he was passing through. And he came in a company maybe of David, of Huey one time. And the other times he came, he was on his way to New Haven. One time he came to see me in prison and during the Panther 21 trial when we first got busted. He came to me with Bobby. Bobby wasn't allowed in. He came in the Tombs and visited me for about 45 minutes. And the substance of our visit, of course, is going to be in my book. But basically, he came through to after the 21 was busted because he thought that the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party, the Harlem chapter, should be closed down because it was infiltrated. And I explained to him that Harlem was the home base of Marcus Garvey, of Malcolm X, of Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism, and close it down would be to capitulate to the enemy's repressive programs. He said he'd think about it, and he went on to New Haven, and the rest is history. Bobby got indicted for the murder of Alex Rackley in New Haven, and so the Black Panther Party Harlem office was used mainly to raise money and funds in order to get Bobby Seale out of prison, and all of this stuff is in the book. But anyway, David Hilliard had no interaction in New York other than through me, other than through Seth Whale to Boy, and other than through the leadership of the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party. And like I said, I apologize, that the audiences and people and the family have to endure his mistaken memory, and I'm sad at that. I didn't want to come on here in order to denigrate his family or have anything to say about them. However, David Hilliard has a very dubious record as the chief of staff of the Black Panther Party. He was involved in a number of things, but that's not what the issue is right here. First of all, he said Donald Trump was a contributor to Black Panther Party and gave them money. Now we know that I got 300,000 pages of FBI files, thousands of them on the Panther 21 Defense Committee and all of that, and how the FBI used the Panther 21's disagreement with the West Coast in order to divide the party. And nowhere in these 300,000 pages of the FBI files is Donald Trump's name ever mentioned as a donor. Nowhere. We have prominent individuals, movie stars, the head of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, Bernstein, I believe his name was. He's in there. Jane Fonda's in there. Everybody's in there. Donald Trump's name has never been mentioned in any way with the Black Panther Party. That's so. If anybody knew about major donations, it was J. Edgar Hoover and his homeboys, and the FBI. So that's one thing. So if you don't believe me, you could believe them. So Donald Trump was never a COINTELPRO target, as far as I know, as far as the FBI has provided. Like I said, we have 300,000 pages of FBI files at Princeton University right now. You can go and look and see if you can find Donald Trump's name in there. You won't find it. That's one thing. Now, the other thing is that Donald Trump owned very little real estate in Harlem, if any, that I know. And the only time that the Black Panther Party had a location in Harlem that was paid for with funds outside of New York was when when the Panther Party purchased the brownstone in Harlem, because Huey P. Newton was planning to relocate to Harlem and have Harlem as his as the headquarters, as his headquarters, because Harlem, as I pointed out, was the cultural and political capital of Africans in the diaspora in North America. So a brownstone was purchased, myself, and I was charged along with other leadership to renovate the brownstone, to get it ready for Huey's residency. And we started on that project, but of course the split intervened. This property was purchased in 1970, and the split occurred in 1971. So we never had an opportunity to complete that. That was the only time that real estate was purchased with money outside of Harlem for a residence, and it wasn't Donald Trump that provided the money. So we could put all that to rest. David Hilliard is very unlikely that he ever met Donald Trump in his life. Yeah, I don't see any occasion when they could have crossed paths. Okay, so that right there is a misnomer.
And Hilliard wouldn't have been involved with the inner workings of that chapter in terms of where the funds went and how the funds were used and all of that. He wouldn't have been involved with that, or would he have at all?
Oh yes, he was involved. Yes, he was involved in that. He was the chief of staff of the Black Panther Party when Huey was in prison and when the Panther 21 were busted, were arrested, and when the Panther 21 Defense Committee was formed. After the arrest of the Panther 21, it became one of the major sources for funds for the Black Panther Party. The Panther 21 was the cause célèbre, and it raised the Panther 21 Defense Committee, which was headed by Marty Kenner, I believe, and his brother, and it had two lawyers in it. I forgot their names offhand, but I'm quite sure that Robert Boyle, who's watching, could probably chime in and give those details. I don't remember much like that.
No, but what I'm saying is, even at that position, so he would have been involved with how
this is
funds
what
were
happened.
used per chapter, even for renting or buying a property. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because he was the chief of staff, and he was in Oakland, he had everything to do with how the chapters function on a daily basis. You know, we had party rules, we had party procedures, we had the mass line that we had to carry out, we had the party line that we had to maintain with our political education classes. We had to sell Black Community News Service documents. We printed a leaflet. So David Hilliard, the chief of staff, he was charged with the daily runnings of the Black Panther Party on that level. And when the Panther 21 was busted, and as I said before, he wanted to close down the chapter in the Black Panther Party because it was heavily infiltrated, he felt. And what they ended up doing was keeping the chapter open, but closing the ranks of the Black Panther Party to new members. And so everybody that came after the Panther 21 bust weren't Panthers per se. They were community workers, what we call community workers. They functioned under the discipline of the Black Panther Party. They attended the rallies, they did all the work, but membership didn't come to them unless under certain circumstances. So, but David Hilliard was in charge of the runnings of the Panther Party. He sent two representatives, Thomas Jolly and Robert Beck, who were promoted to temporary field secretary, field marshal, and temporary deputy field marshal, sent them to New York to run New York. They were to report to David Hilliard on a daily basis, and David Hilliard only. So these two individuals, Thomas Jolly and Robert Bay, they're in the documents that I just sent you from the FBI. If you wanted to post those documents up, if you see them, you can. I had serious difficulties with Bay and Jolly, because they were not from New York. They didn't understand New York. They were basically country boys from California, and but they had the authority to purge members of the Panther Party, to exact discipline, to conduct any types of activities that the party were doing. So David Hilliard did have his hands in that. And also, I want to end with saying that the Panther 21 committee, because it became such a cash cow, Marty Kenner and the leadership of the Panther 21 committee were moved out of New York to California. and so that the funds could be more closely regulated and monitored by David Hilliard, Bobby Seale, and Bobby was in jail, and Huey hadn't gotten out of prison yet. I don't think he might have just gotten out. But anyway, so the Panther 21 Defense Committee, the funds went straight to into the Panther 21 Committee coffers, and the leadership for that Panther 21 Committee, white radicals, white leftists, they were moved to California so that those funds could be regulated, monitored, and diverted. And that's what led to the disillusionment between the Panther 21 who were in prison and the Central Committee and the Panthers who were on the West Coast. They believed that they were abandoned by the Central Committee. They believed that Huey Newton and the Central Committee didn't support them anymore. And I was trying to explain to them that we could handle this, that we had the mechanisms in the party to deal with this, and we were becoming very successful at this, despite the counterintelligence operations designed to divide the East and West Coast. And in fact, what people don't know, and I explained this to Fred Hampton Jr., what people don't know, the reason why Fred Hampton was killed, one of the major reasons politically that he was murdered, he was assassinated when he was in 1969, a few months in December 4th, 1969. We got to remember that the Panther 21 were arrested on April 1st to April 2nd, 1969. The Panther office in LA, when we first heard the term SWAT team, was raided in I believe May of 1969, May or March, May of 1969. So a lot was happening in 1969 that the FBI had began to try to manipulate and use. And Fred Hampton, because he was articulate, because he was a very effective leader in Chicago, which was one of the major Black Panther Party chapters, was the Chicago chapter. The Chicago chapter, the New York chapter, and the Boston chapter, and maybe Philadelphia, raised the most money for the Black Panther Party in terms of selling its newspaper. These were the four major cities that provided the bulk of funds on the Black Panther Party news service. But Fred, like most leaders in the chapters of the Black Panther Party, they were activists in those cities before a Panther chapter came to those cities, if you understand what I'm saying. They were active in their communities, they were activists, and they joined the Black Panther Party as activists. So they had leadership skills. Some of them had a following. Organizations had a following, like Sekou Odinga in New York and Lumumba Shakur, who functioned in Jamaica, Queens, and in other areas. So we struggled mightily with the Central Committee. When I say we, I mean myself mainly, Jamal, Joseph, Setaweo Tabor, and leading members in the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party, Zayd Malik Shakur. We struggled we struggled mightily with the two individuals that they sent to run New York, Thomas Bay and Robert Bay and Thomas Jolly. And that struggle led to a consideration by the Central Committee that they would form, that they would have members from the chapters come and become part of the Central Committee. They were going to, first of all, be considered first cadre, which meant that they would have an advisory role. They would be in the close proximity to the Central Committee, because the Central Committee of the Black Panther Party was too focused in California. It was very narrow in terms of its membership and its authority. Most of it was in California, and anybody that wanted to function or had to function in the party had to come to California. And this is one of the reasons why Huey had, when he got out of prison, had decided that he was going to try to nationalize the party and move to the seat of the cultural and political capital of Black America, Harlem. And so when the FBI found out that Fred Hampton would become a member, probably the Central Committee, and along with some other folks, myself included, and some other members of the party, he was assassinated. And that whole idea, that whole ability to broaden the reach of the Central Committee, kind of like went out the window with him. And the Black Panther Party in New York, suffering under the leadership of the two individuals that David Hilliard had sent to New York, they began to feel alienated from the party, and they wrote a letter denouncing Huey P. Newton that the FBI circulated, and that became part of the basis for the split in the Black Panther Party. And finally, I just want to say about David Hilliard that David Hilliard, as the chief of staff for the Black Panther Party, he had a criminous, acrimonious relationship to Eldridge Cleaver, who was in exile in Algeria. He was somewhat intimidated by Eldridge. He felt threatened by Eldridge, and of course, Eldridge enjoyed the respect and the admiration of a certain segment of the Black Panther Party that held David in somewhat contempt. They weren't disobedient, they weren't ill-disciplined, but they didn't respect David the way they did other leaders like Donald Cox, DC, Eldridge, and Geronimo, and other members of the party. So when Geronimo went underground and went to Texas in order to facilitate the return of Eldridge and set up the infrastructure, BLA infrastructure in Texas, it was David Hilliard that had an agent of the police accompanied David Hilliard, because he wanted to keep an eye on David Hilliard wanted to keep an eye on Geronimo, and he didn't trust Geronimo. He thought Geronimo was too militaristic and adventuristic. That's how he characterized it to me personally. So he sent this agent along with him, and it was this agent that got Geronimo and the whole network in Texas arrested and busted, and that's how Geronimo got busted. So it was David Hilliard that sent the agent with him. Now, whether David Hilliard knew he was a police agent or not, that's up for debate. But that's what happened. And so when Geronimo was arrested, it was the Black Panther Party newspaper that put out on the cover of a sedition, of one of the seditions, that Geronimo, that G was an agent, was a pig. He was a pig agent of the police who was an adventuristic trying to get the party repressed by the police. And this is a matter of record. You can go to the Black Panther Party newspaper archives and see the edition with Geronimo on the front that says "Enemy of the People." And so in New York, the people that David Hilliard sent to New York to run New York, they conducted a litmus test of the rank and file. Anybody that spoke favorable of David was favorable of Geronimo was suspect. And that became a litmus test to see who was on the side of the Central Committee and who was on the side of Geronimo and perhaps Eldridge Cleaver. And so all these intrigues are going to be in my book, but I just want to say, and let everything else flow. I just want to say that it's regrettable that David in his latter years and in his dementia has been used this way, and by some person or some others to build up the types of doubt in the radical history and the radical tradition of Black people. And I think in closing too, we're trying to build a united front. I think we'll talk about that later. But we have to deal with headlines, that 50 Cent is visiting the Capitol Hill. He's taking pictures with some of the most arch reactionary and racist senators, talking about, increasingly Black men are moving towards Trump and that the future looks bright and all of this stuff. I mean, this is pitiful. This is pitiful.
And he's with your boy Crump.
Yeah, that Negro ain't won a case since 1922. All he does is get settlements. But Crump came in with with ambulance chasing Sharpton. That's how he got his intro. They had the regular mid-game leadership by victimhood. Al will come in, pay for the funeral. Crump will represent the family. The family will file a complaint, and they'll tell everybody to wait and let justice take its course. Don't tear nothing up. Don't burn nothing down. And at the end of the day, after the police get off or whatever, the family gets a settlement, sets up a foundation, and Crump moves on to the next case. Leadership by victimhood. So don't start me on them two Negroes.
Well, just real quick before we fully leave that point, I just wanted to clarify the reason I kept wanting to. First of all, if Bob is watching this, please resend whatever you wanted me to get, because that attachment wasn't in your email. So if you could both resend that, or one of you.
But it's still not there.
I'm looking right now. I don't have it. So that's one thing. But the reason I kept asking about what Hilliard would or would not know regarding New York was that I just wanted to clarify that if Donald Trump had in fact bought up a whole bunch of property in Harlem, and particularly for the Panthers, that he would have known that. So this is just maybe his age or memory failing him, or something, something else manipulating his thoughts on that. But he would have actually been aware of that had it occurred. Is really what I'm just wanted to clarify.
I just want to say, I just want to say that if Trump had anything to do with the Black Panther Party in New York, I would have been aware of it. And like I said, now maybe, and it's possible that maybe on the down low, some people that were in New York who wanted to support the party, and I'm talking about some white folks with property, or maybe real estate, wanted to. I mean, we did do a benefit with Leonard Bernstein. That infamous benefit with Leonard Bernstein, who was the head of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and plenty of well-to-do, wealthy, white leftists and progressives came to this benefit for the Panther 21. Remember that this was a
because I saw that new movie. I saw that new movie about Bernstein that what's his name just did. What's his name? Somebody in the chat will know. And they didn't mention that part. They mention what part? They didn't mention anything about his support for the Panthers or the New York 21 or.
Oh yeah, it was a big thing.
Yeah, I just thought that.
We got documents to show that right after that, the FBI had a conniption. They had a fit. The Bernstein had did this and raised thousands of dollars for the Panther 21. In fact, my ex-wife was at the benefit.
Oh, wow.
And what happened was Leonard Bernstein, because he was Jewish, the FBI had a campaign that they called Dear Urban. It was a letter writing campaign that they used to try to smear the Black Panther Party as anti-Semitic. And this campaign, this Dear Urban campaign, went into overdrive to sending letters to different Jews in the Communist Party, in the leftist movement, progressive Jews, saying that Leonard Bernstein was a self-hating Jew, that he was supporting anti-Semitic Panthers who hated Israel, because the Black Panther Party had an alliance with the PFLP, with the Palestinians. We worked closely with the Palestinian movement. We had printed documents saying that Zionism plus nationalism plus racism equals genocide. And this was back in 1968 and 69. just for these young folks out here who's on the campus and don't realize that we have a long history of supporting the liberation struggles of the Palestinian people and the people in Western Asia. So I don't want folks to get this. Bernstein became a pariah to the Jewish New York community because of his support for the Panther 21.
That's wild. They left that out.
and-
The movie was whatever, but they definitely left that part out. So I'm glad you could bring that part in and remind us or tell us. So you mentioned the United Front, and part of when I first saw that clip, before I saw the correction from his grandson, I really thought Hilliard had just got caught up in his old age or his, I don't know, whatever has been said about his conservatism relative to other members of the party, got caught up in the current zeitgeist to pull black people away from the Democrats, as not that we should be there either, but that, to the Republicans. And I was thinking about this United Front that you've been pushing, and we've been wanting to support at least the discussion of. And I was at this conference. I was at the dialectical materialism or historical materialism conference, the Left Forum in Brooklyn this past weekend, and it was wild. It was very interesting. I'd only been to the forum once before, but I'd never participated at this level. And at the conclusion of what I was invited to say, I mentioned, as Daruba is encouraging us, we should develop this united front. Oh, don't be easy with him, D. It's all good, man.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, man. But no, at the end of my comments, I said, and Daruba has been encouraging us to do this united front, and we should push the left electoral political efforts all into one thing, and And it was wild because there were some hardcore black communists in the room who were not happy at all that I said that. They were not.
Did you say that you were talking about the United Front?
Yeah. They were not. They among other things, they didn't like what I was saying. They didn't like what others were saying. And the short of it was not aggressively communist enough. And when they called for their own party or for an independent party, they thought it need not include the Greens, the PSL, Cornell West, or any of them. So I just thought that
who were these people again? Who were these people?
Honestly, again? I don't know them. They were from the West Coast. And all I know is that they black communists and heavy with it. I don't know if they're in an existing CP or anything. I don't know what they're. I don't know. I didn't know. And they weren't interested in building with me. So I didn't really get a chance to talk to them off record or after the event. I just thought it was interesting that I guess it was just interesting to see them be that dedicated. And I think it was weird that anybody from, nominally to my left would it was just weird to experience that. That was all. But that was it. So but I like the idea. And in terms of, to the extent that we engage electoral politics, that seems to be the best way of doing it. And it seems like a counterbalance to a more appropriate one to the critiques of the two parties that are leading people back, or not back, but some way historically over to the Republican Party, at least in some small numbers, and some prominent names at that. So.
Well, let me say this. The United Front doesn't need individuals or sectarian groups that feel that their individual agenda is the one that everybody else should back and everybody else should join. It's a united front. It's an alliance. It doesn't mean that they should stop organizing as they see fit. It doesn't mean that they should forego their projects and programs that they feel fit. In fact, a united front would amplify those programs because other organizations and other groups who may not know anything about these programs and projects would then have an opportunity to see them in practice and participate and support. So a united front, if you have some brothers and sisters who claim to be dialectical materialists and communists and who don't understand what a united front is, they should go back and read the different struggles of the Communist Party that engaged in united fronts during the course of its history, the Bolsheviks or whatever, and the benefits of those. And you know, I could understand them being critical because in the Black community they're irrelevant. So when you're irrelevant, it's really easy to be critical of something that's going to be bigger than you, that should be bigger than you. This is a historical moment. We are on the verge of outright democratic fascism taking hold here in the U.S. There are no alternatives in the duopoly system that the oligarchs control. There's no way that all of these young people who now have their blinders pulled off of them by the genocide, the complicity of the U.S. government in genocide of the Palestinian people, with the complicity of the United States with the UAE in the civil war in Sudan, with the role that the United States is playing in the Ukraine and in Europe. There's no way that these young people should not have a means or mechanisms or a front by which they could raise their political consciousness, by which they could become involved in a united front. And a united front, if we build a strong united front that includes progressives and revolutionaries and nationalists of all stripes and people from all different areas of the country, could morph into a third political party in 4 years. Because if any of these crackers get back into power over the next in this next election, we're going to have fight on our hands to stop the consolidation of the military-industrial complex and the militarized policing in the United States. So all hands are going to have to be on deck, including my comrades, the Black communists, you know, who are still reading manifestos and tracts by Lenin and Buchanan. You know, they're going to have to get in the streets or get in the water, like they say, wade in the water and swim like me. So, yeah, I think that we need to understand that a united front doesn't need individuals. The United States doesn't need sectarian groups and organizations who put their politics and their particular group and organization ahead of the well-being of the masses of working people. The masses of working people, Black people, migrants, people of color, people who are victimized by the patriarchal system, women, and of all classes. We need a united front at this historical moment. And we need a united front that's principled. We're not talking about uniformity here. We're talking about unity. Okay. When we look at the three candidates that's running for political office, we see that when we look at their campaign and their platform, they're all basically saying the exact same thing. They're fighting for the exact same thing: the empowerment of working people, a better educational system, free healthcare. All of these things, all three of these campaigns have on their agenda. And they have no problem, at least since we've talked to Cornell and Jill, they have no problem with contributing to the building of a united front. They don't have no problem. No organization that's sincere, that is principled, that is revolutionary or progressive would have a problem with a united front. The only ones that could have a problem with that are probably reactionary, whose job it is to keep a united front from coming into existence, whose objective is to keep us divided, whose objective it is to say we are the leaders, we are the ones you need to follow. If you don't follow us, you're full of shit. Okay, that's the type of individual that we don't need, because in the final analysis, you know, we're gonna find out who's who. You know, when the proverbial poop hit the fan, you see. And it's close to hitting the fan now. We're on the verge of a fascist authoritarian takedown of this bogus democracy. And this is one of the reasons why, if you see in the statements that we wrote, we went all in on the Electoral college system. And we went in there on the Electoral college system because it was a class, it was built into the Constitution to protect the elite to protect property wealth, to protect those in states who had money and influence, so that if the situation arose somewhere down the line that their progeny wealth was challenged by a plurality of the mass vote, then the electoral college system could kick in and nullify any type of mass vote against the ruling class and against property and against those who run this country. That's why the electoral college system exists. You know that Trump, the orange man, he won the electoral college vote and lost by almost 7 million votes, the mass vote, the popular vote. So the electoral college system is designed to neutralize the effects of a popular uprising against the ruling classes in America. That's why it exists. And that's why I think that the three campaigns that are running for president, the three independent campaigns, have to really focus on this contradiction in the electoral college system, because this is the only system that has this feature, okay, which makes democracy, one man, one vote, one woman, one vote, completely null and void. Okay, this is the only system that has that. Okay, where a minority can get elected to the national leadership or the federal administrative leadership of the federal government and lose the plurality of the votes. No other any other country, the majority, if they didn't get a majority, they would have to form a coalition with the other parties and the other groups in order to form a government. But not in America. In America, it's winner take all. And the electoral college system determines the winner. The electoral college system is a class mechanism in order to ensure that authoritarian or fascist leadership fascist populism can rise to the occasion of taking power in a democracy. That's why it's there.
So just a quick heads up. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wrap this up in about 40 minutes at 1:30 Eastern time over here. Unfortunately, I just had a on-the-fly schedule change in my face as we speak, so I apologize to you, Daruba, and everybody else for cutting it a little bit short today. But just quickly, what's up, Josh? Josh says, I mean, I think that they are worried about who will control the interests of the United Front. Progressives are liberals, after all, and have been key to establishing fascism. So I'm not mad at that point. I just don't know, because the
they damn sure ain't gonna control it.
Well, I mean, I don't know what they're
if they're denigrating the concept of the United Front now, they ain't even in it. And it hasn't even been formed, and they're critical of it. They damn sure ain't gonna control anything, because their analysis and their historical understanding of where we are at right now begs to be. They need some more political education.
Well, I just want to be clear that unfortunately we didn't get a chance to really rap. They were not interested. Really, what they were in that space for, I thought, was to publicly challenge Richard Wolff, who was the sort of the keynote. And that's what I just caught, as they say, a stray in that they so all I really heard directly was that they said that the Greens and Cornel West were not communists, that they were not left, that they're not, and that the left and the Greens have no real anti-capitalist position, which is in fact not true. But we didn't get a chance to really build beyond that. So I don't know what their actual, beyond that, what their interests or goals are, where they are vis-a-vis these other efforts. And what I did gather is that they were from the West Coast. So I'm just, but other than that, what has the response been? And I think you've been in touch with some of the campaigns in question here. What has been some of the discussion about the potential?
Well, we have gotten a lot of positive feedback. In fact, we've gotten feedback from different organizations and individuals. And just when I finish with you, I'm going to be on with Sister Claudia because she couldn't make the last session that I happened to be able to be on with Cornell and Jill Stein. And so we will be talking later on this afternoon, and hopefully that will go positive. We're looking towards the end of July and doing a real sit down, a real conference or coming together for this United Front in Atlanta. We're working on that. I mean, there's a lot of positive response to that, and because some people may have questions about the nature or the political character or the political principles of the United Front, you know, I think that they really have to understand and analyze the situation that we're in, and we'll see what tendency becomes the leadership of this United Front, and it's based on the needs of the people. It's based on what the people have to deal with. It's not based on whether we are ideologically pure in our analysis, or whether, you know, we have the word from God on high on how this conference should go. And I like to point out that historically, when the Black Panther Party called for a united front against fascism in 1969, you know who didn't show up? Huh? The pork chop nationalists, the narrow nationalists, black nationalists, they didn't show up. The ones that were getting money from LBJ's war on poverty, the fledgling black capitalists, they didn't show up. The black elected officials who got into office because every summer the ghettos and the domestic colonies in the United States were going up in flames, and they got elected to office, and then became the Congressional Black Caucus, who later on supported Clinton, who later on supported Nixon's war on drugs, war on crime. None of these people, the black comprador class of the 60s, didn't show up. Huh? And but you know who did show up? All of the communist formations showed up. The Communist Party, USA, they all showed up. It's all historically there. You see? And we came out of that United Front Against Fascism with national committees to combat fascism. And you know what the major objective of these national committees was to organize in the individual cities to stop the consolidation of militarized policing in our community. They called for community control of public safety. And that call led to the co-optation of these movements into civilian complaint review boards. Okay, so there's a history here, and by the grace of Allah, I was there. I've been there and did that. So I understand who wasn't there and what they said and what the reasons that they give. And history has shown that all of them were wrong. The black nationalists was wrong because we got black faces in high places right now that are mayors, that are police chiefs, that are district attorneys, and black people have no political power, still don't control their communities. Huh? So those people that the black nationalists that didn't show, they were the advocates of black faces in high places. They had no class analysis. And the people that did have class analysis showed up. So I don't think that anybody could sufficiently say that, you know, if the front isn't anti-capitalist enough, you know, then they need to take that fight to the 50 cents and all of these individuals. That's their job. That's their job. Because as far as black folks are concerned in the black community, they don't know jack about their analysis and their understanding of capitalism. So this black community got to be educated. And you can't educate the black community sitting around pushing a button on the TV and sitting around talking to each other over Marx and Lenin. You got to get out in the streets and organize people. You got to organize. You got to organize. You got to organize.
So Hiram's asking, can you speak more about the United Front? Did it get off the ground? What was won as a result? We don't know much about it. And is this a new United Front proposal purely an electoral strategy? Is the primary goal to win office in the future? So the history of the United Front, and then what's the goal of today?
Well, the United Front hasn't really got off the ground yet. We still got people that's interested. We're still trying to lay out the format for it. But there's a lot of organizations, national organizations, that are interested in organizing the front. The reason why I put the call before the three campaigns, was because this is a historical moment. And how do we have 3 campaigns running for the presidency when the duopoly offers no opportunity to young people, whereas the contradictions and we're on the verge of fascism, and we got three parties saying the same thing basically on the same side of the barricade. So rather than try to attack them or put them in the position of them being sectarian and all of this stuff, we feel that they have something to offer. If the Greens are registered in 31 or 21 states, that's good. If they put on the ballot community control of the police and decentralization of public safety, if they do that, then people have an opportunity in that city to go there and deal with that referendum. It's the same thing with Cornell. If Cornell could mobilize people, Black folks around understanding what the oligarchy is and how it works, how those who are controlling our communities economically and politically work, he's very good at that, then he should be able to do that. And the front should be able to back him, and he should be able to contribute to the front. We're not talking about backing one of these political parties over another. That's some infantile, childish bullshit. We're past that. Talking about, well, who's going to run the party? It's going to be Jill Stein. It's going to be my foot in your ass if you don't get your act together. That's who it's going to be. You see, because me personally, I don't vote. So that should right there tell you that I'm not interested in trying to just build up an electoral constituency. I'm interested in building a mass movement where working people of color, could stop this fascist drive and towards this ethno-nationalist state, to put in check these MAGA crackers that don't care anything about us, our people, or our situation. We need to understand that this is a moment when all this bullshit stops, and we have to get serious about allying ourselves against a common enemy. So anybody that's against my enemy right now should be in this alliance. And I know who my enemies are. I don't need to go study Marx to understand what capitalism is. I done been there and did that. That's what the Black Panther Party was. It was a cadre organization that believed in dialectical materialism and used all of that. So we understand that that's valuable. That's valuable in educating people who don't have that education, who don't have that understanding of capitalism in the system. Okay? But don't say to me that you're not going to join the front because you're leery about who might lead it and whether your organization is going to be sufficiently, or whether it's going to be sufficiently anti-capitalist. Man, ain't nobody know your ass in the community now. You see? You got, why ain't you picking at 50 Cent? He ain't capitalist, he's a capitalist. Huh? Where's your critique on him? Invite him on your program instead of talking shit about you don't know if his fund is going to be sufficiently this or that.
Well, he and Crump are in DC to fix the racial wealth gap. So I'll see if I can get them on the program. See what we can do.
You got jokes, man.
I mean, they're here to save us, Daruba. So just to be clear, you're not. So when Hiram is asking about the primary goal in the future to get someone in office, you're saying no, it's to build a grassroots
I'm
movement.
saying, but that's along the way. I mean, if we build an effective united front and we able to exercise power in one particular city or whatever, all politics is local. And if we have a united front where organizations that were dealing with homelessness, there were small organizations in a city dealing with homelessness, as their membership in a united front amplifies that struggle, they are able to amplify that and get other organizations to contribute to that struggle. And then if we got an ability to get legislation in that local politics in order to ameliorate the issue of homelessness, then we should do that. But that's not the ultimate objective of the United Front, is to empower people who don't have power and who don't have the choice in the duopoly system. I don't know how anybody can't see that. And so if we are effective in building this front, believe me, we got the next 4 years, we're going to have to fight to survive. And if we fight to survive and we survive in strength and we able to call boycotts, we able to shut businesses down, we able to have our voice heard, poor people can have their voice heard because they're part of this front, then we could be talking about another political party in 4 years. So I don't know where it's going to go. I don't have all the answers to this, but I do know that this is a historical moment. And if we don't build this united front, we're going to live to regret it. And when our children ask, what did you do when MAGA populism was rising? What did you do when there was a clown that was going to be elected president? What did you do when the police were being militarized and murdering us wholesale? What did you do? And you're going to say, well, I was studying Marx and I didn't want to do nothing because Marx didn't say the time was right. Or I was, or you know, I was into my black faces in high places, and I thought that we would be cool. I'm a black capitalist, and I thought we could buy our way out of oppression. Get out of here with that shit. So I'm just saying that I just wanna when I bite the dust, when I kick the bucket, I want it to be said. Well, at least he said something.
There's no doubt about that. That part will be clear. So Jaribu is asking, is this not similar to the People's Senate that is being put together by the spirit of Mandela? I don't know enough about that effort. I don't know if you are aware of that effort. And
well, I'm aware of the People's Senate and how it grew out of a recent tribunal. But let me say this: you look up the word Senate and you look up the word people, and that answers the question. Because it's imagining a People's Senate without a foundation for power, without an instrument in order to implement that power and organize that power, is just a concept, and that's all it could possibly be. But now there are those brothers and sisters who are working in that. I know Comrade Jalil and Jihad Mumit are working on that, and that's a good thing, you know, because like I said, we're on the same sides of the barricades, and any efforts that they put in to build up people's power on the grassroots level is welcome. Any level, any struggle that they could develop in order to raise the consciousness of working class people and get them to understand that they need to have a voice in the administration of their government, that they need to control their local politics, and they need to be part, whether it's part of their effort to hook up a People's Senate. But we have to understand that People's Senate has to be connected to something concrete. It's just not an abstraction. It's not just us voicing our opinions and feeling, you know, that we have a kumbaya moment here because we all agree on something. You know, a united front is completely different. A united front is about marshaling the forces of progressive people to have an impact on what's happening right now in this space, right at this moment. And that impact could be economic, it could be political, and it could be cultural. But the whole thing is to show that there's an alternative to the duopoly system of white supremacy in this country. And we have many of us have a common enemy, and we need to unite in order to defeat that enemy. You know, some of us may come into the front now in order to defeat that enemy, and that enemy will get laid low, and they might quit the front because they no longer feel it's necessary to fight on that level. You know, martial law, that's up to them. But we do need a united front. And we have the examples historically of united fronts that were far more acrimonious than the beefs that we have with each other. If you look at the struggle of Mao Zedong in China, when they were fighting the Kuomintang, when the Kuomintang had killed thousands of communists in China, and the Japanese invaded China. When the Japanese invaded China, they formed a united front with the Kuomintang that they were fighting in order to get rid of the imperialist Japanese. Once the Japanese were done, they went back to fighting each other, and Mao ran them out, and they're on Taiwan now. Okay, united fronts have utility, and they have utility based on the historical movement and the power of the enemy and the forces arrayed against progressive movements, against revolutionary movements, and against those who are trying to overthrow this capitalist system. Like I said, I'm not in this to get Jill Stein elected or to get Cornell elected. I'm in this for black folks, African people, to win power, to transform the nature of their oppression, to get out of their oppression and exploitation. I'm a Pan-African and I'm a revolutionary, and I believe strongly, when it comes to internationalism and settler states, and colonialism, that I'm not down with reform. I believe in one settler, one bullet. I do believe that. That's the only remedy that you have for white supremacist European settler states. One settler, one bullet. And if you look at all of the revolutionary movements that led to struggles for decolonization in Africa, in Mozambique, Frelimo, the Angola, the MPLA, the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, the ANC in South Africa, all of them have turned out to be reactionary governments. All of them. Once they've been in power for the past 25, 30 years, they've all succumbed to the pressures of the nation state within the dichotomy, within the context, international finance, capital, and capitalism, and white supremacy. Huh? Look at Kenya. You've seen the recent visit of the president of Kenya to the White House, standing next to Biden. He was articulate. He didn't even need a cheat sheet in order to speak. He was very articulate, and he talked about how Kenya was in America's back pocket and how they were sending police, they were sending mercenaries to fight in Haiti and doing the gangs. Huh? This is Kenya. This is where the Mau came from, right? Huh? Mau was the first ones that came up with that one settler, one bullet. That's where I got it from. Mau. So now what do we have? We have the president of Kenya standing up next to Biden, talking about he's going to send policemen to Haiti in order to fight the gangs. What are we talking about here? What does this historical movement mean to all of these dialectical materialists? Huh? What does this tell them right now? What should they be doing right now? If not building a united front against white supremacy and fascism and Zionism and all those other isms that oppress people and poor people and people of color. What are they going to do? Pontificate?
So big thanks to Bob Boyle. I did get the files. Was there something in particular you wanted us to look at? I see where your the reference to Hilliard demoting you is referenced in here. But is there something in particular you wanted us to pull up?
Well, I just wanted you to see that the two people that he sent there, they were sent to New York by David Hilliard and the Central Committee, and their sole purpose was to try to siphon off energy and money and funds to the campaign to free Bobby and to the Central Committee in California, and that I had myself in particular, I had a serious disagreement with their conduct and the way they were conducting business. And that's what the FBI shows in those documents. And that's one of the reasons that I was targeted. That's one of the reasons that they said, well, look, so when you look at the thing that says I was demoted, it was demoted. That demotion was because of my opposition to the behavior of those individuals that Hilliard had sent to New York, you see. And so I sent those documents to you to show that Hilliard himself was never in New York. You see, you don't see any documents mentioning that Hilliard spent any considerable amount of time in New York or met with anyone in New York other than us. Okay, every time I went to the West Coast during the Panther 21 trial, every time I went to the West Coast on the weekends, I would have to fly to the West Coast and report and do a report on a cassette tape with David Hilliard, and David Hilliard would have Charles Gary, the attorney for Huey P. Newton, send the tape into Huey. Huey would listen to the tape. He would record his responses, and I would get the responses and fly back to New York. That's how we operated for some time, until, of course, David and certain folks felt threatened by our push to democratize the Central Committee. They felt kind of threatened by that. you know, and that's by the end of the year, of course, Fred was killed, and that got kind of like sidetracked with the split in the party and everything. And so by 1971, by early 1971, the party was undergoing severe strain because of Huey's erratic behavior, as the FBI knows. You see, and of course that led to some other stuff that sadly we suffered under. Some of the stuff is very regretful, but I just want to say that it's sad that this woman exploited Hilliard in his old age and his dementia, but I don't think people should think that Hilliard has the sterling memory of what actually transpired on the East Coast, because he doesn't. And I also think that people need to understand that there's documentation that Hilliard himself was suspect in terms of his collaboration with the government, with the FBI. And so that's part of the reason why he was distrusted.
Oh, you just muted. Okay. Yeah, I like this part. I always like these. I'll have to read this more carefully later, but
my earphones died on me.
oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. This part here where the Bureau.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I don't think you hear me though.
I hear you now.
Yeah. So the Bureau feels that in talking about Newton responding negatively and violently to his criticism and saying that Geronimo Pratt was a CIA agent, the Bureau feels that this near hysterical reaction by the egotistical Newton is triggered by any criticism of his activity, policies, or leadership qualities, and some of this criticism undoubtedly is the result of our counterintelligence projects now in operation. So they're acknowledging playing a major role in confusing or creating division and hostility. It's just always wild to read that. No, it never sort of gets boring or whatever. And then they talk about on the next page needing to exploit the chaotic situation within the BPP. You know, so it's just yeah. So listen, unfortunately, I got to turn to a wrap. Is there anything else you want to make sure you get across before we wrap for this? And of course, we'll always be able to have you back whenever. And I would love to hear more about these future conversations with the candidates you're meeting, with whom you're meeting. And I think it'd be great. Are you all talking about, is there going to be some sort of, are you pushing them to some sort of, I don't know, unified, if not campaign at the moment, but like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a collaborative convention of sorts?
Absolutely. We think that they should appear. We're looking for around the 1st of August, the beginning of Black August, to have a meeting, to have a conference where all three candidates can show up and offer their support for a united front. You know, the united front is not about supporting or advancing one campaign over the other, or for them to abolish their campaigns. The United Front is trying to call everyone under one umbrella. This includes the BDS. This includes our brothers and sisters who consider themselves communists. This considers those who consider themselves Pan-African and nationalists. This is also people who consider themselves Black feminists, or everybody. We all have this common enemy, and I think we all can see it now. And so the United Front is designed to or is envisioned on bringing us all together under one anti-fascist, anti-white supremacist, anti-racist united front. And we will have advisory councils and leadership councils that will consist of all of these organizations. And
Uh-oh. Did we lose you? You're muted again, Daruba.
I'm sorry. I must say everybody can contribute, and everybody can contribute based on what they're doing now. You see, I think that, like personally, I don't want any type of leadership role in this personally, you know. But I would hope that some of my political analysis and my comrades' political analysis would go into charting mass line of the front. I think we have to understand that the front is a principled alliance, and that every organization that's part of this front, you know, they voice these principles because they believe in it. That's why they're in the front. And so if we have people working with the homeless, and they're talking about how homeless people are treated, you know, of course they're going to talk about the role of law enforcement in dealing with homeless people. So therefore they're going to advocate for community control of public safety. You see, those who are in education will do the same. So this is not something that we're telling everybody they're supposed to cease and desist from what they're doing and all of these things. If there's brothers and sisters that feel that the front is not sufficiently anti-capitalist, then they have to organize within their own sphere and within the community, so that the voice of the community says that we're opposed to finance capital's exploitation of us. We're opposed to these absentee landlords. All of these are features of capitalism, but nobody uses the word capitalism. I mean, we're just starting to use the word fascist now after 6 months of the Zionist genocide in Palestine. I mean, the word fascism is just coming up now as Trump becomes more and more entwined in legal machinations. You see what I'm saying? And everybody's talking about their fear for American democracy. And what do you fear for American democracy when you have an electoral college system that is basically democratically fascist? It's basically designed for the rule of the rich and the elite and those who own property. You see? So I don't understand how anyone could think that the United Front is just about electoral politics, because you have electoral organizations trying to maximize their votes or get votes out for their particular party. You see? There's going to be people in the front that probably don't even vote. I mean, you wouldn't catch them in a voting booth, just like myself. You see, so would I prefer to get community control of public safety on 21 referendums in 21 different cities? Absolutely. And what am I going to say? That getting in on the referendum is not sufficiently communist? I mean, I don't think that plays a role when the police pull over a black man because he got a broken headlight and he gets murdered on YouTube. I don't think that it was whether he was sufficiently communist or not had anything to do with that. Okay, it was the militarized armed agents of the state, by the way, who have a union. And the police have a union and they're not workers. How does that happen? So who in the United Front is going to take on the police unions when we're trying to get union workers in? We're not having no police unions in the United Front because the police are not workers. They're armed agents of the state. So we need to educate our community that they are not workers. So talking about hands up, don't shoot, and defund the police is an oxymoron. It's ridiculous. A police state is not going to defund their armed agents. It's that simple. And you got some cities where the police are making got almost a fifth of the budget. A third of the budget goes to police and law enforcement. So they can give up $50 million to some programs to send a psychiatrist along with armed agents of the state for a house call. You know, they could give up $1 million. Does that change the relationship of the police to the working people? Does that change the relationship of the police to the community? No. Community control will, of public safety. If we select our police chiefs, if we have our community policing districts where the police are told how to police in each district based on the needs of what the people need in that community. When we talk about hiring and firing rogue cops and cops who don't do what they're supposed to do, okay? So I could go for that. I can go for that on the way to forming a more political party, a more powerful entity, a more anti-capitalist entity on the way there. But we got some obstacles to knock down on the way. We ain't, and we're not going to get there, you know, being disunified. We're not going to get there with everyone's ego thinking that they should run this and that they should run that, and that if everybody don't get on their bandwagon, then they ain't gonna they're gonna take their marbles and go home. You see, so you know that's some infantile stuff, man. So the United Front hasn't gotten off yet. We're still trying to get Bill, but we're looking towards the end of July that we'll be able to have several, maybe 100 organizations and groups coming together on a principle basis. And in between then and now, I'll be writing and putting out calls on the front, highlighting different areas of unity that I think that we could work on, that we can get together on. And I just want to say again, before we go, Jared, I really appreciate you and the crew bringing me on to talk about these timely issues. I understand that, you know, in this particular case, it was to deal with the manipulation of a former comrade and former leader of the Black Panther Party. But we see that even that segues into the broader conversation, because the whole purpose of undermining, the whole purpose of using him was to undermine Black voices and project a false notion that Black people are somehow wedded to the duopoly system of the Republican and Democratic Party, and that Trump is somehow, you know, someone who's in the favor or has the interests of Black people at heart. You see, and and finally, I just want to say, a lot of those people who are talking about Trump now, a lot of these bourgeois folks, the Oprah Winfrey and all of them, they used to go to his parties. They used to party with him in New York. I know because I live in New York. They used to party with him, including old bobblehead Al. He used to party with him. You see, they all did. So you know, I could understand how associations tend to change over the years, and people try to minimize their former associations with people who are now declared enemies of Black people. But Donald Trump was never a lover of Black folks. We know about his putting out the ads in the Central Park case to call it for the death penalty for the Central Park 5. We know all of this stuff. Donald Trump didn't even allow Black folks in his building. So we know that David Hilliard is being delusional. You see? But you know, this is the age of instant communications, and so, you know, the medium is the message. It's, you know, the medium has become the message. And the fact that she was able to put that out, put David Hilliard out there, throw him out under the bus, forced his family to come out and say, look, you know, what he said was his account of history. So I'm just here to say his account of history is bullshit. It's not true. And if he really reached out to people in New York to find out, I would have probably got an email somewhere. Or somebody would have said, so-and-so is reaching out for you because they want to know if such and such is true in New York. No such thing happened. Okay? which tells you that we are still locked into that paradigm of the past, where reactionaries, where people who became right-wing reactionaries who were once revolutionaries are still trying to hold on to their reputation and still trying to hold on to their legitimacy and their validity. But it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen on my watch.
All right, well, Daruba, we're always happy to help you. Please just keep us up to date with whatever are the next steps. We'll always be here to help. And thank you very much again for jumping on real quick. And apologies to you and everybody else that I'm cutting this a little bit short. But we'll definitely have you back on whenever. So thank you. Safe travel,
Yeah.
Stay well, and yeah, we'll catch you again soon as possible, my man. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, my brother. You
All
take
right,
care.
all right.
Peace.
Likewise, be safe. Peace. Definitely peace to Daruba, because we know he will absolutely fight for it, as Fred Hampton once said, and we encourage that of all of you as well. Big thanks everybody who joined us live today, and those who will see and hear this later. Thanks to you as well. We will continue to struggle and advance our struggle. So please do like, share, subscribe, support our Patreon if at all possible, materially, given again our demonetized wilderness 90 days of yeah, we get longer, right? It's longer than no, I'm joking. I'm tripping. 90 days of wilderness in the demonetized wilderness of YouTube. So peace, if you all are willing to fight for it, as I know you would have to be if you are checking this out, particularly those in the chat right now would have to be. And we'll catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like and throughout the platform. But until then, peace, everybody. Thanks again.
I mix what I like, what I like. I mix what I like is exactly where you want and need to be. I mix what I like, organic, vegan, soul food from your media diet. Get healthy. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.